Hi, my name is Sif Baksh, and welcome to the webinar where we're talking streamlining IT integrated device security and compliance. And I would like to welcome Matt Woodruff to the webinar. Thanks for joining, Matt. I'm just going to introduce myself real quick. My name is Sif Baksh, again, with Tines, Senior Solutions Engineer. Basically help you automate everything around security to IT to DevOps. Matt, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey everyone, Matt Woodruff here. I'm the worldwide industry lead for security and compliance here at Jamf. I've been here over 10 years, well, coming up on 10 years, and really been focused on helping regulated industries understand how to manage and secure Apple devices in their organizations globally.
Perfect. And let's go ahead and move to the next slide. So, what you can expect from today, we're going to review key challenges IT teams faces with device security and access policy, how workflows can improve efficiency and reduce manual workload, best practices for securing Apple ecosystem with Tines and Jamf, and then a live demo between Jamf and Tines ourselves. So let's have an open conversation around key challenges of device security and access policy. One of the things I would like to question on there, Matt, is remote work still a thing? Is it still the number one issue everyone is looking at, trying to solve?
Excellent question. It's probably been the top question since the pandemic started when a drastic accelerator happened for everyone to be forced into understanding how to support the remote workforce. Obviously, got out of the office, and more importantly, as remote work started, there obviously became a point where BYOD also came hand in hand, and organizations, especially IT and InfoSec communities, started understanding, wow, especially in the perspective of Jamf, there's a lot of people that like to run Apple devices. But one of the things that has happened over the last few years that we have recognized and I have recognized is that there's two new initiatives that people started focusing on recently, and that was okay, we think we've got the remote workforce part of it down. How do we secure that component of it? And that's where ZTNA practices started happening. And that's where organizations started coming to Jamf and even Tines to try to understand, hey, there's some orchestration, there's some management, there's security that has to happen to implement ZTNA. And then the last year has been a dramatic change to an entirely new perspective, and that was AI. What do we do with AI? What is this policy around it? How do we handle this? So that's what we've seen over the last 4 years that has got us to the point of the end of 2024.
Perfect. Um, so that is great insight. I mean, and that's where a lot of my customers are always concerned is how is the ecosystem changing? So that's perfect example of that. The other one I was going to ask is regarding the pandemic again, and talk more around the budgeting. How has the IT budgeting changed from that point of view as well? Besides, it's is it growing? Is it shrinking? Or what, from your perspective, what are you seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, IT budgets have increased, but in a different paradigm than most people thought would happen 4 years after the pandemic. And that is BYOD became a pretty drastic implementation policy as the budgets were not able to keep up with a full remote workforce in the corporately owned, operated, purchased devices trying to be shipped out to all of their global employee base that become very hard to complete. So BYOD came into perspective as, hey, this might be a possibility. Maybe they bring their device, and obviously, we're set up for Windows. We don't know how to do it for Apple. How do we handle all of this perspective, but yet still maintain the high level of management, the high level of security necessary. So then that's when budgets started changing pretty dramatically in favor of InfoSec. And what we have found at Jamf is that there needs to be a divisive setup of the device security posture that helps set up the ZTNA policies to be successful. You must validate the user. Is an employee active and that their risk posture is low? Then you go and you set up a device risk posture, validating that there's no malware phishing attempts on the device itself. Then what are the corporate resources that this user on this device should be granted access to? And therefore you set up a ZTNA policy, but all of it needs to work together for the success of the organization and keep the risk low. And then last of all, now some budget, not all, as I've been to about 3 different security conferences, actually more, this past year, in the paradigm of AI, where does it sit? What do we do to implement this? Do we have enough budget to go and try various LLMs or ChatGPT variants, or is there new AI tech that we need to look into, Copilot, Apple Intelligence, and others that we need to monitor and keep hold of? And so that's where you'll see some budgets are going to start opening up for 2025 in this upcoming journey of both IT and InfoSec budget allocations. You're on mute, Seth.
Yeah, my apologies. I was going to say, though, that's perfect. One of the things that every topic that you hear nowadays is AI. How's AI affecting the business? How people are losing data? All these things, data leakage, all these things you can think of from a business security standpoint. What can Jamf offer in that landscape to help try and secure the infrastructure from someone like me who loves playing with AI and all these little funny tools out there, implementing it and keeping our data secure?
Absolutely. And it's more about the journey now. You're understanding that you might not be able to handle sourcing all of this from just one organization. Unfortunately, there's been some security ramifications over the 2024 year where there was a very large security vendor that tend to own everyone's security, from EDR to cloud to IoT to everything. Finding out, putting all your eggs in that one basket is a little hard to consume when something happens to that single organization. So now we're in the perspective of the 2025 year, finding out which tools are best to implement in various scenarios that can handle that particular perspective. But most of all, how can they all work together? Is there proper integrations between them? Can there be some automation spun up between the tools so that it's not a burden to an IT staff, especially supporting this remote workforce or a hybrid workforce? So how do you appropriately handle your 2025 year to support all these new efforts with possibly a lot of new tools?
No, that is exactly it. And that's one of the things for me that is top of mind for a lot of my customers. So that's some great insight. The next question I have was more along the lines of how can we, Jamf and Tines, give our customers better tooling to stay ahead of this AI curve together?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a point where I spend just a few moments in letting you all know the Jamf perspective of all of this is our platform has been built since 2002 to help support the Apple ecosystem pretty directly, with some more advancements in securing both Android and Windows. But we have 3 main products that make up the Jamf platform: the Jamf Pro product, Jamf Protect, Jamf Connect, where each one of these are able to help a different perspective of both device management, identity management, and security of mostly the Apple ecosystem. And so as we built out these products, one of the key things that has helped our partnerships along, like with Tines, has been our enriched API. And that grants organizations multiple facets of being able to integrate with our solutions to help advance. Hey, we do most of our tooling over here with these various other tools because possibly you have a larger Windows infrastructure than you do Apple infrastructure and devices. So in turn, how do we make sure that we're using these tools efficiently, but yet they have connections into the Jamf platform to be successful? And what we're very happy about is just how well this API has worked out for Tines to set up, and even our joint customers to set up different integration points where they see automation through this orchestration tool to be successful and make sure that you can handle these multiple tooling and facets in this type of world that we're living in today.
No, thank you for that. And that's exactly it. It's the API focus is powerful, and all the information that we can gather from there, all the events that are going on and generating, taking action and enriching all of that context to the end user is, you know, bread and butter for us. And that's where the relationship really works and, for both of us.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And one more thing, if you don't mind me adding, and that is with Jamf's focus on Apple, that means we're not deterred. Apple comes along with a new operating system each year. We're there to support you. And more importantly, if you do use tools that integrate with Jamf, that also means you're going to be on the forefront of supporting that latest version and whatever might be included in it, whether it be with macOS Sequoia and some of the new DDM functionality, as you might look at Jamf Pro's new blueprint features and other things like that, that help support organizations at the scale that they need to stay compliant, which that's the big world that I live in, is regulated industries. And how exactly do you make sure that as Apple devices are supported either corporately or through a BYOD program, that the compliance standard is never diminished, that you're meeting those federal auditors, you're meeting the security audits that you need to do every day. And that's what the platform of Jamf can help support and automate, and then you layer on Tines to help that endeavor.
no, and that is correct. And the one of the other things regarding that is around the AI, everything else. The one thing I was going to say is, how important is it to shift to device management? Have you seen a huge shift on device management from a customer standpoint around the AI capabilities on a Mac?
Yeah, absolutely. So our journey, as we were describing how and what we were going to present to you all today, is the distinct understanding that yes, AI tooling does exist across multiple platforms. Obviously, they're usually cloud first, or they have some type of cloud-based interface that allows you to interact and utilize these AI tool sets, especially LLMs. But then Apple decided to take a different approach with all of this and stated, hey, from a privacy perspective, we are very uncomfortable with this concept of organizations submitting possibly sensitive data up into an LLM to be assessed, to be create an outcome that might be useful, productive even. But what happens to that data? Where is it going? How is it getting used? That's very hard to understand in many cases. So Apple Intelligence was a very different release coming out from Apple. So most organizations, when they came to Jamf, was trying to understand, how do we restrict this? How do we control it? How do we manage this so that we have maybe a staggered approach to the release of Apple Intelligence? Well, thankfully, that's where Jamf Pro comes into play in the device management capabilities of, there are some configuration profile capabilities to go and restrict portions of Apple Intelligence. Today, you can't turn it off completely, but there are portions of it that you might want to turn off, and we're going to make sure that that's available to you at all times. So yeah, so here you are, all looking at your 2025 project plans, and AI is one of those big components of it. So more importantly, what I hope that you all are also thinking about is how do you manage and secure the use of Apple Intelligence in your environment as well?
Perfect. Thank you. Now we're gonna switch gears and move on to where do workflows fit into device security and access? So from that point of view, what are some what are some iterative updates of the operating system, Apple Intelligence capabilities added to where someone should be looking at that? And from an automation standpoint, how do we tie that in together?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the part where we hope to tie together your understanding of device management, device security, and from Jamf's perspective, how to do it on Apple. And when you do it on Apple, there is a understanding Apple Intelligence is coming out with each OS update a new feature. So just as Sequoia, Mac OS 15.1 came out with your first iteration of using these various things, whether it be math notes or assistive dictation and other things that Apple Intelligence is now assisting with. How do you make sure that either one, if your organization is on the forefront of technology, you can use Jamf Pro to go and force out the update to macOS 15.1. But if your organization wants to reserve some time to understand what are the configuration profiles that I need to deploy, maybe what are some network barriers that we can set up to restrict access, that's where you can use Jamf Pro to also restrict when does that software update go and get deployed onto an endpoint, because that's how Apple is going through the journey of releasing Apple Intelligence updates. So that's the journey for the upcoming year, is understanding how do you handle this, and do you have the right tools in place that know how to do this and can schedule it based upon all of your decisions for the upcoming year.
No, that's exactly the vision I had when having the conversation with you previously. So that is really good insight. When it comes to updating, is it from? I'm just going in more from an orchestration standpoint. Is it usually, hey, we want to roll this out now to everyone, or is it usually more of a staging process of, hey, we're going to do these, first 50, 100? What are those recommendations would you have to customers that want to automate these type of updates?
It really depends upon where the organization is on their beta testing phase with Apple. I have customers everywhere from Cisco, the maker of your firewall and everything. They're a Jamf customer, and they have tens of thousands of Macs deployed, and they have a proper beta release testing cycle with Apple, where they are taking through the journey of understanding, based upon what Apple's been doing during the beta phase, we want to make sure that this particular release of macOS Sequoia, even including some dot releases, are going to be available to users on the day that it's the same day that Apple releases it. So Cisco's in the mantra of, hey, we're getting these updates out as quickly as possible. And I think they're up to like 96%, don't quote me on this, but 96% of their Mac users are already using macOS Sequoia. Now, there's other regulated industries, usually in the financial district or healthcare or retail or any others, government. You might find a little bit slower release where they have dictations that state there needs to be not only a beta release testing from Apple, but also we need to validate that we have tested it after the GA release. And then there is a user preference. Does the user want to update at that point? And how can we set up an orchestration pattern so that when the user is prompted, what is the response? Does the manager get notified that they've been delayed? Do other tools get notified that, hey, this particular device states that they want to update, but according to the Jamf Pro inventory, Tines is showing us that it is not able to support this particular OS. There's a lot of orchestration components that will come into play based upon whatever workflow you choose.
That's great. And that's exactly, some of the things that I'm sure folks who are watching this right now are trying to figure out is what's the best approach for patching, updating Mac OS. Because, like you said, I had a customer in the hospital where the switch was under the or operating room and it's 10 years old. It has dust, everything. You can't touch it unless it dies. That's the only time you can touch it. So I completely get what you're referring to. So, moving on around a little more around solutions around best practice for workflow device management. What would you recommend customers to look at for guidance around managing all those devices? Like you said, Cisco has over 10,000 devices. Anything from small to large customers. What are some of your best practices you always recommend?
Best practices that we have seen globally be successful is try your best to get any OS updates out as soon as you possibly can. And the reason why is one key point. With Apple, they release vulnerability patches within the operating system update. So it's best practice from a security standpoint to patch your vulnerabilities as soon as possible. So take the journey with Apple, get into Apple's beta program. It's part of the Apple Business Manager program, and make sure that you are in fact testing Apple's beta releases as soon as you possibly can to understand impact, especially to critical applications. Then take that journey of making sure the end users are notified of how quickly you will be enforcing this update. It's best to use various automation tools, both from Jamf as well as the open source community, in making sure that the end users are listening and hearing, oh, it's 2 days and I need to be updated by the end of 2 days after the release. That kind of momentum will drive reoccurring patterns in your end users where they just understand an OS updates coming out, my IT is very consistent, 2 days and it will be patched. And so as you build that consistency, that's what's going to end up helping the end user experience overall. And your InfoSec team will be very happy that you're patching vulnerabilities as soon as you possibly can. So that's what we've seen as best practices upon our 76,000 customers globally at Jamf.
And you're absolutely correct. And that's one of the things from, Tyne's point of view is all customers, every time I'm talking to them, that want to do, hey, vulnerability management. And like you said, there are vulnerabilities being patched in that OS and all of that information tying together and giving them a better view of their tech stack. So that's a really powerful use case so they can see that up front. So um, going here. So the other thing around the sorry, I lost track of here. Um, so from a strategy and a policy implementation, you suggest having a beta program immediately so you can push that out to users. Using a platform like Tines to automate that process. So those users, whatever it'll be, 5 or 500 users across your company to have that. Then once those are vetted, then immediately patch as many devices as you can. Am I correct in that
That's correct.
assumption? Okay. And I think that's it for some of my questions. Do you have any questions for me around workflows and how it fits with the automation or anything before we go into a demo?
Um, it really doesn't. I think the demo will help display exactly why an orchestration will be necessary for a pretty automated workflow for whatever department wants to utilize it. So, yeah, let's head into the demo and start showing what are the workflows available, especially between our two products.
Oh yeah, I did forget to skip to this slide while we were chatting, so my apologies on that. So let me go ahead and share this tab. And now what we're looking at, and this is a story in Tines library, and it is a streamlined macOS software updates with a self-service patch management. It's a mouthful, but what it's doing a lot from here. So where it actually can run right now and actually check if there's a Mac OS update and go through that entire process. What this is doing from this standpoint is really powerful because it automates this entire thing for you. So there's no updates right now, but if there were, and you can actually automatically send macOS updates to the pilot group. So I'll move over in a little bit to the pilot group and can see that here in a moment. So what that means is we are actually getting all the update information, running through it, patch management, query Apple for release info, going through that and notifying for updates. Really powerful. All of these things is just on an automated path where we schedule this job, and I'll show you that. So we have this job repeating every day at 5 a.m. and it's running out every day to see if there's an update. Now, a couple of things to look at here. This is the pilot group deployment workflow, and this is production group workflow. So you're separating it just like Matt said. So now you're keeping it. You have your beta release, you have your production ready deployment, and this is where you separate those workflows. Really simple, but powerful and effective. So from here, we have within our records storing the data of getting the Tines deployment information of which records we have out there. So this is where we actually run through and then Slack the users if there was an update for notification in Slack. Once we get that approval, it would actually come back through this process and start the update going through this entire thing. So we're sending the the Mac OS updates, and as you can see, like Matt said, we have a powerful API from Jamf. We're actually sending the updates. It's iterating through all the patches that it will need. And once all of that's completed from that standpoint, it comes down again and let us know that, hey, once it was finished, it will remove outdated management records within Tines. Then it would actually update it with the latest information we're getting from a Jamf deployment. So it's a nice way of keeping track of what's going on in the environment within Tines, as well as getting that updated information from Jamf. Anything to add, Matt? Or
No, no, it's absolutely correct. As you look at this automation workflow, a key point in case you are not aware of Jamf is that yes, Jamf has a self-service application. There's a key difference here, though, when this was built by one of our community members. There's an acknowledgement. This is more acknowledging a self-service option within Slack. You can see that it's actually got three different tools are at play here. You've got your Jamf Pro server, you got your Tines, and you've got Slack, in which all three of these are going to be able to work together because the self-service option is actually getting done through Slack. And that allows that interactivity between the Slack server receiving a pass-through of, hey, is the user ready or not? That was all part of that notification process that I was mentioning earlier, where, hey, you've acknowledged that your policy will be within 2 days patch the operating system. And with this Tines workflow, you're going to receive that notification in Slack or any other collaboration platform that you might have that has integration with Tines. You can build that out. And that grants you a very easy option to use something that the end users are constantly in. Not It's not every day that they're opening up the Jamf self-service app on macOS, but it is every day. I know I personally use Slack, that I have Slack open. I'm going to receive that notification within that channel as soon as it pops. So this is a great understanding that interactivity will be pretty responsive without a lot of not different needs of different tools.
No, perfect. And that's exactly correct. And that's the reason the workflow was exactly built out that way, because all of us, majority of us use Slack, and that's where we get a lot of those messages from. So, talking about signing up for the opt-in pilot updates. So, this is where users can automatically sign up for it. So, just like Matt was saying, we need a beta. This is how you can set up users to sign for a beta. So I'm going to pop this out and then share this screen so everyone can see what it looks like. So as you can see, it's Jamf and Tines working together to give you that opt-in capability. So user fill in their name, fill in their email, and then select I agree. And now they can go ahead and submit the form, and this will go through the process of adding you to the opt-in user. So now you become a beta user. So I'm going to switch back to this tab and continue the process. So now what it will do, I don't have this story set up because my Jira credentials weren't working. It would actually go ahead and create the asset in Jira, go ahead and go through the entire process, get the Jamf record, go through the entire approval process in Slack. Now, this is for demo purposes, so I didn't set up any of my credentials. My apologies on that. But just wanted to show you now that I actually signed up for it. Now, when the workflow comes out that there is, let me jump back over here. There is a pilot on your Mac OS sending to the pilot workflow group. Now I'm actually part of that beta group, and I will receive that notification automatically. And now it would actually push the update using Jamf. But if, for example, I no longer want to be involved with this, we also did the same thing where you opt in, you can actually opt out of the option as well. So these are some of the things you'll be able to do. So opt in, opt out, and giving you that capability within one story within the platform. The beauty behind this is we can automatically update you, remove you, your asset, and everything all around Jamf, Slack, and Tines automation as well. So these are the ways you will be able to do that. And right below here is where your Slack, what it says, Slack decision. Basically, whatever you click yes or no, you want to update, this is the whole process you will go through. Again, as you can see, a whole bunch of Slack notifications, as well as adding you to the pilot group within Jamf. This is how you see that entire flow of streamlining your updates between Jamf and Tines. And it's one simple story. One more thing I just wanted to show you guys how powerful it is to get up and running is, let me pull that up here. Sorry. And I meant to share this tab. All you have to do is come to Tines library. Matter of fact, let me just do that again. Tines library, search for Jamf, and then it's this one, Streamline macOS updates. And this is how easy we've made this with Jamf and ourselves. Hit import. That would just bring it right into your platform. And now you'll be able to run the story just like I am here. That's how simple and powerful automation from Tines with Jamf combine to make your daily life easier. Anything on this, Matt, you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, I would say a couple of questions that I know the audience will ask about is integrations with other platforms, whether it be what if we don't use Slack and we use Teams or Cisco Spark or any other collaboration tools, as well as what if my manager should be approving whether or not I am in the pilot group. So I need some ServiceNow integration in here to make sure and submit the request up to my manager. Is that offered?
Oh, I'm glad you do. So, besides what we're showing you here, we have these things called templates. And as you can see, there's over 464 products. So, Microsoft Teams is listed out here, but ServiceNow, we actually have an integration. I can go through that process of dragging that over, adding that in there. I can also do some stuff that's really powerful. And I can actually say, based off of your submission, I can then go look up in Azure AD, pull in who your management is, and automatically submit that request to them as well as part of this automation flow. So, and you mentioned Cisco Spark. I haven't heard that term, that chat product in a long time,
Yeah.
but anything that has an API, we can integrate with, whether it be WebEx, Teams, any of those platforms. We and Spark as well. We do have an API capability. We can integrate with any of those as well.
Yeah, and the last time that I looked, if you don't mind going back to the library and selecting that search capability of Jamf and showing just how many workflows have been submitted, yeah, 115 templates have been submitted by your customer base, correct?
Um, yes, these are all our template actions. The one we're looking at is the Tines library. So let me reshare that tab and then close out of this. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Besides the 115 actions, we also have 9 um,
Yep,
workflows.
yep.
And the beauty of this is you can import any of these and pull them into the platform and start working with them. So it's like report a lock or a lost device in Jamf. Simple. Pull that in, and you can do that as well. And there's more platforms that we're integration we're looking at building towards the future. We're looking at adding Jamf Connect and Jamf Protect. So in the future, you guys will see a lot more stories around that as well.
Yeah, so if all of you have decided to go all in on Jamf's entire platform of the Protect and Connect product as well, they do have APIs. And so our next plan with our partnership is to expand all the capabilities and help Tines understand what those API endpoints are so that we can develop some more workflows. So that's one very helpful component of our future together.
Yes, and that's it for the demo. Do we have any questions?
There was one question about the Microsoft Teams that you were able to answer. Any other questions, please get them in. We've got people monitoring our Q&A. Given that Jamf has a number of automations built in, what areas does Jamf see Tines benefiting customers with their orchestration stack? Okay, so one of the things that Jamf has done over time is obviously respond to our customer requests and needs to have some built-in automations. And usually those automations are when a device inventory gets updated, something changed, and then you want Jamf Pro or Protect to respond to it, that we have some automations built in. And we have integrations galore. If you go to the Jamf marketplace, you see all these integrations. What we have not done a good job of, and the reason for our partnership with Tines, is orchestrating it all. So you'll find that you might want multiple different products to be working in concert with each other to make sure that, hey, Slack and Jira and Jamf and Tines and ServiceNow, they all have a play in a certain workflow. That's where Tines comes in and really shines for our customers to make sure that you're going to have a benefit of every tool that every department has purchased, but yet they're working together to make sure proper notifications are going out, proper updates are going out, and that interaction can in fact happen. And so that's the reason why you'll see Jamf's automations might be great, but there's no centralized tool to orchestrate multiple integrations together with other products. And that's what we're excited about at Jamf and the reason for this Tines relationship.
It seemed like another question came in. How does implementing solutions like these scale as our Apple device fleet grows? And are there any limitations to consider?
I think this is directed at me. Is it, Sif?
I'll direct it at you, but then from an automation standpoint, I can take that in as well. Yeah.
Okay. Implementing the solutions like these scale. There's no limitations on the Jamf perspective as far as, hey, you have 100 devices now, you're looking at 5,000 next year, or you have 5,000, you're looking at 500,000 next year. Jamf can support them all, and I will not disclose who, but we've got one customer that has close to 1 million devices being managed by Jamf in one instance. So we definitely don't have any concerns about scale. Our platform as a whole, if you're unaware, is built on either AWS or Azure. And so you have hosting possibilities when you're looking at Jamf solutions. So please be aware of that. But yeah, from a scaling perspective and device security and device management using the Jamf platform, there are no concerns or limitations.
And just to take that on from an automation point of view is the same. We're scalable, same thing as Jamf, and there's no limitation to consider here. We would, the million users will, of course you can't say, hey, I'm going to push out automation to 1 million devices. No, you chunk them in size. So you would do something like that, like, hey, let's hit 10,000, write this first API call, then another 10,000. So these are ways you would grow the scale from that standpoint. So, like you said, from 100 devices to 1 million devices, automation can scale to support those as well.
I think the next question is more directed at you, Seth, which is what level of customization is available for workflows to address unique compliance or access management policies?
Um, so the beauty of the platform is it is your business process. So what I just demoed to you is just one typical use case. You can customize that to meet your business unique processes. So from a point of view is we can actually pull in information around the every Jamf policy that's out there, look at it, and then make sense of it to you as well. From it, we have some AI capabilities in there to read the policy and assess what it's doing. Then also give you option of selecting which level do you want to add this user to. So which policy and granting that access. So those are things you have to think out from a business process of this is what I want to build out in my workflow. This is how we're going to answer these questions and customizes as you go through. So you might have a one-off where you have VIPs where they get everything, but they don't get these rules applied to them. So these are some of the things you would have to think from a process standpoint to then implement to an automation standpoint. This one's for you, Matt, and or both of us, I should say. What are the most common challenges IT teams face when managing Apple ecosystem, and how does the integration address them?
Oh, wow. Well, that's a good one. Uh, the challenges that we're finding globally is IT organizations have done an exceptional job of acquiring talent that knows the Windows, even the Android ecosystem really well. They even train them by getting like Microsoft certified and others. But then all of a sudden, this growing influx of Apple devices has caused concern. They don't know what it is. They don't know why is it so different. Why did Apple do their operating system so differently? What are configuration profiles? I don't understand it. And so that I would say is the common challenge that most IT organizations face is understanding that a Windows admin will not be sufficient in managing an Apple ecosystem or Apple devices. And so you'll find that getting them trained on Apple first or finding a new set of individuals that know the Apple ecosystem really well and trained on Apple and trained on Jamf and certified in both ends up making it a very successful use of Apple within your production environment. Now, what I would also say is this integration would help when you are trying to bridge that gap. Let's say you are very used to a specific workflow that works extremely well on the Windows side of things, or even like on the network stack at a firewall IPS level. You just kind of know what should happen, what's going on. You don't know exactly how to do it in Jamf. Well, using Tines, you'd be able to pull together these different workflows, understand which API endpoint you need to be communicating to, and then build out a workflow that more than likely can run in parallel to what your common knowledge is to this day. So that's one of the ways that I could see this integration helping with that specific challenge. Sif, do you have more to add there?
Actually, you're spot on. And one of the things I would add is Tines use that integration with Jamf here. So I was onboarded about 6 months ago, and that's exactly the tool they use was Tines to onboard me, to get me into Jamf, ship me out a laptop, popped it open, everything was automated, including my email, and here's my access, and it just worked. And when I got on board, I was like, wow, that was the best onboarding I ever had. And then with Jamf, and they were like, oh, we automate the entire thing with Tines. And when they explained how your API work and all the stuff, this is why we're having the conversation because I was just I was like blown away how easy it was to integrate with Jamf. They were like, oh yeah, Jamf has this great API for us to do all these things that we need to, from onboarding to for offboarding as well. And I thought that was so amazing.
That's awesome. Looks like we've got the last question and we're running up on time now. What clever stuff are folks doing with Tines and Jamf in regards to vulnerability management?
So one of the things from that standpoint we're looking at is customers are now realizing the importance of s- collecting vulnerability, not just from one platform, from multiple platforms. So I actually have a customer collecting it from three different platforms. So the big two and Jamf is the other one. But what we're doing is we're actually storing the information as a vulnerability management um, tool within Tines itself in these things called records. So now for the asset, we pull in the asset info from Jamf with that vulnerability, and then we're pulling it in from the other two tools. And from there, we're actually enriching it. So that's one of the powerful things from there is pulling in all that CVE information regarding the vulnerability and then bubbling it up, all that record information into a case. So you're able to tell a better story of everything that's going on in the environment.
That's awesome. And yeah, one of the things to be understanding is that the Jamf platform, as we continue to expand this integration, understanding yes, Jamf Pro offers an extensive ability to gather not only the basics, but also advanced inventory and then customized inventory attributes so that you can truly understand where does that vulnerability exist. And then with our expanded future where Jamf Protect is also gathering a ton of information about vulnerabilities that exist at a CVE level. We hope to see that introduced within the Tines library and as well as workflows. And so that's the journey that we look forward to. And so, Sif, I want to thank you so much from Jamf's perspective to having us on your webinar today. And so if you don't mind, finish it up for us.
Sure. Thank you very much, Matt. I appreciate you as well. Um, just want to thank everyone for joining. And just to let everyone know, there'll be a recording sent out for everyone who joined. And there will also be a link to the story that I shared. Thank you again. And Matt, thank you so much on behalf of Tines. for joining us today.
Absolutely.